Hello, everyone. As I received a very nice response, a lovely response to the last video, I decided to make another one. This time, it's a little longer than the last one in terms of the length of the poetry, and it has a lot of place names in it. So I'm not entirely sure how some of these place names will be pronounced, if I'm honest. I find that sometimes the words in and around areas like Badenoch and East Perthshire, etc., they had a kind of a mix and match where Gaelic names were used sometimes, and then the more sort of Scots versions of those names were also used. So I'm not entirely sure, but I'll give it my best shot. As always, I would say don't take everything that I say as gospel. I do try to be as accurate as possible, but of course, there are always going to be times where I misread something or get something wrong because I am a learner like probably a lot of people who are listening to this or watching this. So my intent with these things, well, my intent with everything is kind of like perhaps a jumping off platform that people can use for their own study or for their own learning or whatever, but it's never to be taken as 100% correct, especially because I have some issues with reading. I'm slightly dyslexic, so often when I'm typing, actually, especially on social media, I'll type something and I'll end up spelling it incorrectly or putting the wrong word in there and realizing it afterwards. And that's especially problematic with Twitter because you can't edit a tweet afterwards. As far as I know anyway, which, I often have to just leave them up there and add a little annotation afterwards like, my silly brain has struck again. So with the warnings aside, let's jump into it. Vamian bran, gulch as an gaig. Nedast agus leim na larach. Vesi vor. Vo bun go brai. The spanslum vi nalt vaich. Smór bjalum vin drum uachgar. Na vin gaig nan grad gruamach. Far vechkin an na hulshen. Is you vierag ed varen ngulen. So I'll do the English now. And you'll have to forgive me because I'm not entirely sure what the pronunciation of these places are. But I've been at Bran, at Kulk and Gaik, maybe, at Edart and the Mare's Leap, on Great Feshi from its lowest to its upmost part, and on the Baie Burn I'd rather be. By far I'd rather be on Dramochter than be in Gaik of the Frowning Rocks, where the gentlefolks I might behold, with red musket across their shoulder. So let's have a look more in depth at some of the words. You'll notice that in is often just an or an an sound. This is fairly standard for East Perthshire, I found, looking at my material. The annen or aunen is... It appears from time to time, but I don't think it was the standard. I think most people just said un or or because it was quicker, perhaps. It was just easier to say. You'll also notice in front of the kulk, you have an gu, because the C sound, the k, becomes a g after an N, so it kind of nasalizes, I suppose. And that actually brings me to an interesting point I found in the East Perthshire Gaelic book. In front of non-nasalizing consonants, so for example, a non-nasalizing consonant would be something that isn't changed by the N sound of an. An example of which would be an L sound. The question word apparently changes, so rather than being un, it becomes na. Nalemu, will you jump? This could be quite confusing because also na is used as a negative order. So for example, nalem, don't jump. But I suppose if you've got the pronoun coming after the verb, it might be a little bit easier. There's a bit of context there. So, and I mean, if this is what they were using in Blair and around that area at the time, then they mustn't have had any issues with it. Initially, I'll find something like the lack of saying certain words or using different words, and I'd think, oh, that seems terribly confusing. And then, I think about it a little bit more, and I think, well, they use that, so it mustn't have been that difficult for them to use. Some other ones, the kind of the sh sound that you find after something like edash. It wasn't like a sh t sound. It was actually more of a st sound, apparently. So edash, at least according to the book that I have. And I have heard some audios with the st sound as well. You'll notice that I don't say the slender R sound, and that's because it wasn't used at all in that area. It may have been in the deep past, but up until very recently, nobody used it, so you wouldn't hear the so morth or anything like that. It'd be just more. When it comes to rather be, I haven't got any information in my book about its usage, whether they would have said the final sound or sound at all. So my guess, given that it seems to be the norm in East Perthshire Gaelic, is that it would have been just uns. So bunts, if they used it at all. I have no idea, to be honest. After farum, of course, the F sound becomes a V, so farum vechking. And any C sounds in the middle or at the end of a word often, not always, but often, I think, become a h sound or a h sound. So kind of, for example, vechking is kind of a h sound. A lot of the slender N sounds, so we have guolan here, they didn't always say, in fact, I'd say majority of the time they didn't say the slender N. Now, that's not to say that they never used it at all. They did, and I've seen quite a few points at which they had used it, but it was fairly inconsistent, and I couldn't tell you which words do use it consistently, which words don't use it consistently. Sometimes it'd also be overcorrection as well. So I think I tend to not use it unless I'm absolutely sure that it was used. For example, the word for milk, bany, it was definitely used consistently with that word. With guolan, I'm not sure. I think I'll read it one more time before I finish up this video. Vamian bran, en gulch, is en gaik. Nedast agus leim na larach. En vesi vor, vo bun gubrai. Spanslum, vien nalt vaich. Smor bialum, vien drum uachgar. Na vien gaig nen grag gruamach. Varam vechkin an na hulshan. As you vi jerag waren guolm. I've been at Bran, at Kulk, at Gaik, at Edert, and the Mare's Leap. On Great Feshy from its lowest to its upmost part. And on the Baer Burn I'd rather be. By far I'd rather be on Drum Ochter than be in Gaik of the Frowning Rocks, where gentle folks I might behold, with red musket across their shoulder. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Please be safe, be well, and take care.